We're with Ed Potosnak, who is the head of the League of Conservation Voters, and thank you, Ed, for agreeing to interview with Blue Jersey.
Great to be here. Thank you.
I'm sure many of our viewers are not familiar with the League of Conservation Voters. Can you tell us what the mission of the organization is?
Absolutely. The New Jersey League of Conservation Voters is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization whose key aim is to take our shared environmental priorities, the things that we care about: clean water, clean air, preservation of open space for our children and future generations, and make sure they are priorities for the New Jersey legislators, and that they have a place not only on the docket, but to ensure that we have a healthy future for our state.
How is the organization's agenda developed?
Well, we work with in the community, really in a wide-ranging engagement, trying to get as many people involved. And actually, we're going to be undergoing over the next couple months a wider effort to really listen to stakeholders and hear all the different issues as they see them, priorities for the state, and put together our legislative priorities based on that input. And again, really as broad as possible, we'll be inviting people from those different constituencies to come in and speak with us and work together to put together that agenda.
So you mentioned the stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders?
Well, first and foremost, it's the voters, the residents and their families and our businesses that live in the communities. And then, experts who, both from the scientific community and also other nonprofit organizations that have key interests in different regions within our state and environmental communities, looking at what are the specific things that they're experiencing and some of the hurdles that they have, both in policy and implementation, to make those environments more sustainable and able to be there for the families and businesses that are in the community.
So how does somebody get involved if they have a specific issue in their part of the state?
Well, over the next few months, like I said, we're going to be inviting a wider, broader range of individuals together to join with us in this effort. And the best way really is going to be to join our mailing list on our website, www.njlcv.org. There's a sign-up button in a couple different places. If you can share your name and your email address, you'll be certain to have an invitation to have your voice be heard. If you're unable to participate in that way, I also invite you to hit the Contact Us button and leave your comments there. If you have a priority issue, and certainly that'll make that way into our discussion as we put together this robust agenda for this legislative session.
How is the organization funded?
We're funded through donations from individuals. As executive director of the League of Conservation Voters, I'm also executive director for the League of Conservation Voters Education Fund. So one is a C4 and the other is a C3. And we get funds from individuals who are interested in shaping the policy, but also the political that we often know helps to make the policy happen. So on the C4 side, individuals who are interested in supporting that, in addition to reaching out to foundations who make it part of their mission to ensure that we have a clean environment and a healthy environment for all New Jerseyans.
You mentioned that you're looking for input from stakeholders, but there must be some issues that are already on the table. What do you see as the top environmental issues facing the state today?
Excellent question. I mean, they really go into three different categories: clean air, clean water, and the preservation of open space. And we've seen a lot of things happen in recent days, really, just at the end of the last legislative session, that really has put at risk water. Recently in the paper, some folks may have seen, the Asbury Park Press ran a pretty lengthy, multi-part discussion regarding the status of our waters here in our state. And I think there were a lot of people who were shocked to learn that we only have one clean body of water that, if tested, and according to the research, is clean, that would not need treatment. And that's really a sad state. So we need to do more to protect our waterways. And one of the things that's happening, it's related to the open space. The natural filters are being reduced through the development of land, and water isn't able to be cleaned and preserved in that way. And so we're looking at all different ways that we can ensure through legislative vehicles, making it a priority to clean up these waterways, both for recklessness in the past, but also things that happen every day when the rain comes, when the water runs off and finds its ways into our streams and tributaries, and then into the bays and into the ocean. Making sure there are the natural pieces in place, the trees, the plants, that'll help to remove some of the contaminants from our runoff.
One of the areas of clean water that we read a lot about is Barnegat Bay and the impact of the Oyster Creek nuclear plant there. The operating license has been extended to 2019 or thereabouts. How is that part of your agenda, and what can be done really to clean up Barnegat Bay, which is one of the treasures of New Jersey?
Barnegat Bay has seen some of the worst years on record as far as real visible signs of exactly what I was just talking about, lack of filters, natural filters for our waters. And it's great to see that the administration, Governor Christie, has made this an agenda item. We're very pleased to see that a focus be put on Barnegat Bay. As an aside, there are lots of other waterways as well that need care and concern. As far as the power plant and extending that license, it is a great concern. We see with Fukushima and other disasters, that the nuclear power plants have risks in our environment, and we need to be really careful and how we're extending these. I believe that the design is very similar, and making sure that all of the components, not just the water, as we're saying, but if there was an accident, that it's really sound and it can continue to operate appropriately. And it is a concern, and we'll be working on that issue. But cleaning up the bays, cleaning up the streams and the rivers is really critical for our future. And a lot of that has to do with the runoff. My background is in chemistry. Nitrogen, phosphorus, they just don't have any place to be cleaned out, and they're running, and we're causing all kinds of abnormal situations. The bodies of water just can't handle that high quantity.
Another waterway that's been in the news has been the Delaware River, especially with the dredging that seems to be favored by Pennsylvania, but maybe is receiving some resistance from New Jersey. What's the impact of that dredging, and what can we in New Jersey do about it?
Well, dredging, has environmental implications. A lot of that has to do with the fact that so many pollutants have found their way into the sediment of the river, and when we go through to vacuum them up, as they were, to dredge, we release them into the water, and that's a concern. It's a little bit of our past that has caused us to have the predicament that we're in now, and how we might go forward to allow industry, allow shipping and business in a balanced approach that respects the environment and ensures that these toxins don't continue to find their way into the food chain, and basically cut off other business interests, the fisheries and folks that are out there fishing, from being able to do that as well, because these are just going to find their way down the river. And so, the league is looking for balanced approaches to make sure we have all those interests in mind, especially as it applies to the Delaware. The Delaware River also is a common shared body of water with Pennsylvania, and we're really concerned about fracking. The fracking industry in Pennsylvania has done a number of things. We've seen the movie where you can light your water on fire. We don't want that here in New Jersey, and so we're firmly opposed to fracking, and we're pleased to see that this legislature is moving. The Senate passed in the subcommittee for the environment a ban on fracking. Permanent ban is what we support. In the last legislature, they were able to pass through both chambers a permanent ban on fracking, and Governor Christie conditionally vetoed it just for 1 year. We want to see a permanent ban. We don't want our waterways, our common water, the river, that we share with Pennsylvania to be laden with all kinds of harmful chemicals, methanol and benzene and other kinds of hazardous chemicals. And we certainly don't want to be able to light our water on fire. And so we have a vested interest in working with folks in our neighboring state to ensure that we're working in a coordinated fashion with each of those legislators. Of course, us focused on New Jersey, to put together a comprehensive plan that's clear and protects our waterways and the poisonous chemicals from finding their way into our human bodies, but also all the animals that use those as a main source for life.
You touched on this, but let me go into a little bit more detail. Your organization publishes a scorecard for our elected officials. How would you rate the Assembly, Senate, and the Governor today?
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the scorecard, which can also be found on our website, www.njlcv.org, where you can look at all the legislators in both the Assembly and the Senate and how they rank on our key legislative issues that we scored that came up for a vote in the last legislative session. And we're working, right as we speak on what we'll be scoring, and that'll continue to be a work in progress as the chambers take up different pieces of legislation around the environment. It's really critical, if we're going to make the environment a priority, that we have a way to communicate to voters. They're the ones that make a difference in who's in power and at the table on these decisions. And so we feel like having a very transparent process where we inform legislators of what we're going to be scoring on and our positions. And then as they come to the floor for a vote, we can hold them accountable by giving them a grade. And quite frankly, there were a number of legislators on that list that scored poorly, and I invite you folks to take a look at those, and some that are doing well. But we feel that in New Jersey, because of the difficult nature of our history, the fact that we have one clean body of water, that every legislator in our state, regardless of their party, should be a champion. And so not only do we look to advise and put out that scorecard, we also look to educate legislators on the right positions and why they're so important to ensuring that we have a clean environment, that we're good stewards for our children and future generations. And that scorecard is really critical to that process. And in our endorsement process, and knowing what campaigns that we're going to be working on to fight, to keep our champions in office, and to look at folks who have not been there and actually have been doing everything they can to undermine the protections that we have for a clean environment, to put some folks in place of them that are going to be good stewards. And that's a big part of what we're doing. And I encourage folks to look at that, to look where their legislator stands, and quite frankly, I think everyone has room for growth. There are a lot more needs than any legislature can get through in one session. But we look forward to not only just holding them accountable, but working with them to craft good policy and help to educate voters on why those policies are important so that we all can be successful. This is not an us and them, this is an us together. Our future really depends on how good we are at making sure we have clean water and clean air and open space. Our economy, our environment, they're all interrelated. And I'm really pleased to be working on that, but the League is also just so focused and energized to continue to do this important work.
I don't think anybody would disagree that these factors are all interrelated, but often politicians play off the conflict between the environment and job creation. How can we create jobs while at the same time protecting the environment?
I think the answer, it's a great question. How do we create jobs and protect the environment? There are a lot of things that need to be cleaned up. And last time I checked, there aren't volunteers out there doing the cleanup work. I mean, this is skilled labor that requires scientific plans to be executed by folks who have expertise in that area to mitigate what are very difficult situations. And we have a lot of areas that need attention here in our state, and those are jobs. Investing in those cleanups is going to put people to work. And we actually have really good human capital in our state. We are, in some ways, folks look to us as experts. Some of the longest history of pollution comes with it, some of the longest history of cleanup. And I think we're well prepared to do that if we make it a priority.
Switching gears here, I realize you've been on the job only about a month and you really need to make your mark, but will we see Ed Potosnak on the political scene in the future?
Well, I think you're going to see Ed Potosnak working with the League of Conservation Voters here in our state to ensure clean water and clean air, because it's a passion of mine. I'm pleased to be able to deliver on that. I'm so proud of the support that I got from so many over the course of my campaign, and I think the future is yet to be written on that piece, but I'm just so focused right now on this work. I think there couldn't be more critical a time for us to address the environment, and the clock is ticking. I feel like that clock is ticking fast. Somehow a second isn't really a second when we look at what's happening with climate change, the numbers that are coming back, and our addiction to foreign oil and how it's interrelated, and some of the ways that we haven't really embraced efficiency. We're going to be able to have a big impact by setting the stage and some really strong policies here in our state to address those critical needs.
Okay. Ed Potosnak, thank you very much.
It's great. Thank you again for having me.